Hey everybody, this is Ketwalski here, checking in with a kind of a rare video here on the channel, which is, a live stream. We don't do a whole lot of live streams here on the Ketwalski YouTube channel, and because of that, we have to make it a special occasion, which is why I have brought on a fantastic guest to come on tonight and talk to me about Star Trek Discovery. We're going to have a great discussion about Episode 5, the entire season of Season 3, and just kind of beyond for what we expect for the rest of the season. I will go ahead, before we even get into all this, it's going to be super spoiler heavy, so click away. You have been warned. It's going to be super spoiler heavy. But as I said, tonight I have been joined by the fantastic Nick from the Sci-Finatics channel. Nick, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk today about Star Trek Discovery. We have had so many crazy good episodes, I would say, overall, since we kind of got started in Season 3, and I'm really just pumped for our discussion tonight. What about you?
Absolutely. The season is certainly cracking along 5 episodes in, isn't it? So it'll be good to break down a few bits and pieces that we happen to have observed about how our stories are unfolding.
Yeah, I know. I think that most of us had this idea of what Season 3 was kind of going to be like, because we had this idea. We knew that we were going to the future. We knew that we were going to be dealing with this destruction of the Federation and kind of what happened there. So a lot of theories were kind of running around. And then we got introduced to the construct of the burn and kind of figuring out what the hell that means. And we still honestly don't even know what that means, but I don't know. It's just been a good season, I think, so far.
They've been very vague about the burn, haven't they?
Yes.
Every time they ask anybody about it, whether it's the Admiral or the David Cronenberg bloke from Section 31, everybody goes, there's so many theories out there and so much opinion. Nobody knows what's going on.
Right. Oh, the burn. I don't even have enough time to tell you about the burn. Yeah, it'll be. We'll
shh, don't mention the burn. Don't mention the burn.
I know. It's been teasing us in some regards, but I think that's a good thing. I want to say one of the things that I super enjoy so much about this season so far is that instead of racing against the ticking clock to save the entire universe or whatever it is, the universe has already had the problem. Like, the catastrophe's already occurred. So now all we're doing is kind of just uncovering what it is that happened. We're kind of just doing a whodunit kind of mystery. And I like that because it's just slowly unfolding. And we as the viewers are with the discovery in this strange new universe that, and we're just uncovering it. And I think that's good. Like, I'm kind of enjoying the fact that we don't know yet. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think, one thing I think about good TV shows is that they need to ask questions, to keep us on the hook. But if they don't answer questions, we feel, unsatisfied as an audience. So they obviously started off the season, thinking, we've got to find the Federation and Starfleet. Where's Federation and Starfleet? They're asking these questions, and they paid that off in Episode 5. They paid that off in a big way. Yeah. But they need to keep asking more questions to keep us on the hook. So it's like, okay, we've given you a nice little present. We've got the Federation. We've got Starfleet now, but we're not going to leave it there, because we're going to start asking new questions. We're going to start to create new mysteries. We've got the burn. We've got Philippa Georgiou in weird trance-like states, passing out and whatever she's doing. We've got weird musical themes that are going on in people's heads. That
whatever the hell that's all about. Right? Exactly.
Exactly. So I think the show is definitely doing a good job at the moment of paying us off with little presents in the form of asking questions and then answering them, but then asking new questions just to keep us entertained and keep us on that hook.
Yeah, I agree with you right there, and we'll get into the Episode 5 here in a second, but I want to touch on what you just said, which is they paid off. Like, one of the big questions is what happened to the Federation, and we've gotten that answer for the most part, from what I think, in Episode 5. which is kind of crazy. You would think that they would hold that off to some other time period at the end of the season or whatever. They're like, no, we're going to give this answer to you right now at episode 5, and we have 13 episodes to get through. So I have no idea what's going to happen for the rest of the season, but we'll get to that. We'll get to our theory crafting here in a second. So before we jump into our kind of discussion of episode 5, I do want to go ahead and acknowledge Tom Casey's $5 donation. Thank you so much for that donation. It says, I want to support your channel. Season 3, very good this year. I would agree. I think so far it's pretty good, but we're going to get to our overall opinions of season 3 towards the middle of the stream here. So Nick, what did you think about season 3, episode 5? What were your thoughts? What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy overall about the episode?
Look, I think one of my favorite parts about episode 5, and this is something that finally I think we're getting in Discovery. Now, that moment at the beginning of the episode where they arrive at Federation headquarters, they go through the distortion field. We've got all the crew looking with that massive sense of wonderment, about everything that they're seeing. They're seeing new ships. They're seeing the Voyager J. They're seeing, all this technology that's just blowing their mind. We're going around all the different crew members, and each of them is kind of chiming, oh, look at this, look at that, look at that. I finally feel like with Discovery, a greater sense of ensemble cast. I think for the first 2 seasons, Owo and Detmer and Bryce and Reese, they've really been glorified extras on the show. We haven't really heard much from them, but I kind of feel like they're remedying that in this season. And finally, those characters that are up front on the bridge, we're finally hearing their voice. We're finally getting a little bit of an insight into their personalities. And I think that's one thing that's been missing from Discovery, is that sense of family, that sense of ensemble cast. And I think this episode did an absolute amazing job to remedy that. What did you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Actually, this episode and even episode 4, where we got to have the dinner sequence with them, I would say has really tried to build up the ensemble cast a lot. And everybody had different things to do, throughout this entire episode, which is really great because I think in the past they've struggled to kind of give other people things to do. And I think that they're really kind of not putting Michael Burnham in a back seat, but they're putting her in a position where she has a very great focus and a very specific task. And she was excellent in this episode, as was Sonequa, as the actress, and I feel like everybody had their roles to play, and it was really, really well done. And I agree, like, we're finally getting to learn who these characters are in a really, really good way, because they touted it as this ensemble cast. And then I remember at the end of season 1, most people were like, I don't know who the characters are on the bridge. Oh,
absolutely. I even sort of halfway through season 2, I couldn't tell you the names of half these characters on the bridge. And I think because there was a sense, I think before season 3 started, there was a sense of not anxiety from myself, but a sense of, because I think season 2 stood on the shoulders of Pike in quite a big way.
Yeah.
And obviously we knew Pike wasn't going to be in season 3. So there was that sort of trepidation, I guess, where I think, is season 3, is it going to be okay? Is season 3? Because obviously season 2 was good. But let's face it, Pike did prop up season 2.
He did.
Quite substantially. And you're sort of thinking, is it going to be as good as that, or is it going to be better? And I really think it has been. And I think they've risen to the challenge. That, as you say, that ensemble cast is definitely getting more screen time. We're getting to feel from the crew of more of that sense of family, like we've done before with the crew of the Enterprise and the crew of the Voyager and the crew of the original Enterprise under Archer and all that sort of stuff. Getting that ensemble cast feeling. And that was what was missing, I think, in the show.
Absolutely, and I think that they've done a very, very deliberate effort so that at the end of every episode now, at least since the crew's gotten back together, so I count that as like the last 3 episodes, really, they have had a moment where the crew really rallied together and they had that emotional closure and that hope message kind of attached to it. And, I thought it was really good. I thought that I like the fact that they're doing that. They're being very deliberate about that, which again, I think goes to show like people like to say like they don't care about Star Trek over there at Secret Hideout or at CBS or whatever, and I don't think that's fair. I think that it goes to show like they really care so much about putting in the effort based off of the constructive criticism that people are giving them, and they've really kind of connected that. And I feel like, honestly, whatever this burn is and whatever the situation is there with the big bad, maybe kind of, the person behind the curtain type thing, I feel like they're being very deliberate this season, and they're really earning whatever the payoff is going to be by giving us all these fantastic character moments. Like, there's some awesome character moments in all of these episodes, and specifically this one. It was great. And even the new characters that we got with the Admiral and all that, like, he was obviously kind of, every admiral's kind of like, most admirals are kind of jerks, right? That's kind of like a Star Trek thing,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he had a good, it was understandable why. Like, he was like, you could be temporal agents for all I know. I don't know who you guys are, and you want me to just trust what you guys are here to do. And it kind of makes sense.
I'm glad they did mention the whole temporal agent thing. It was good that he said that line. We could actually prosecute you guys for jumping through time because of the temporal cords. That we heard about.
They're getting a ticket as they come through.
It's like we're going to fine you because time travel is banned. So I thought it was good that they went to the effort of, and they've done it more than once in this season. Reference the temporal Cold War and the temporal Accords and stuff, because they were only because Daniel's appearances on Enterprise or whatever.
Yeah,
I think that was from was it the 30th or the 31st century? So that was only like 100 or 200 years prior, I think, in the time they're in now. So it's still kind of fairly recent,
Yeah, definitely. So, and I'm glad that they brought it up. I'm glad that they did, like you said, because it's something that is absolutely important. And I think they're being like they mentioned it in episode 1 with Book talking a little bit about the history, but the fact that the Admiral also mentioned the temporal Cold War essentially and the temporal Accords, I like how it was just very like those things happened. We dealt with that, and these are some of the extenuating second and third order effects of that, which is I don't believe your story about you magically defeating this control AI and you warping through the future with a time crystal. Like, I just don't believe that. And he was a jerk.
You've saved all biological life in the galaxy? Like, yeah, sure, come on.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you head out? Why don't you take your stupid ship and go? And that's the thing is he was a jerk, of course, but it was with a good reason, and it wasn't like he was just being like he wasn't an Nechayev, he wasn't off the rails. And I mean, obviously at the end he was like, okay, I was wrong. I'm gonna leave you guys. I'm gonna leave it together, and I like that. He was a good character. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're going through. Hopefully we'll get to spend more time with the other people that they kind of introduce themselves to in the Federation there, and hopefully we'll get to understand more about what their life is like, because it seems like they're constantly in a struggle. Like, everything seemed to be very, very like crisis, all the time, and that was the impression that I was getting. And so I'm very curious to see what they're going to be using the Discovery for in the future, and then also like what the hell's been going on. Like, what have they been doing? Like, if they have that many ships, which I do want to go ahead and point out, we had the Voyager J, but we also had the USS Nog. I don't know if you caught that as well.
I did catch that. Yes, I mentioned that in my review video.
Which I think that, and maybe, I don't know if this is official yet, chat. You guys can let me know if this is official. I don't know if you know this, but I think that they labeled it the Eisenberg class after Aaron Eisenberg, who played Nog.
Oh, right.
I don't know if that's true or not. I saw that on Twitter. I don't know if fans were just saying they should do that, or if that's actually 100% that's accurate. But yeah, let me know if that in the chat, if that's true or not. But
I was trying to read the name of that ship at the end when the camera pulls out from Burnham and Saru looking out the window of the ship. There's another ship behind them which says USS something, but I couldn't for the life of me read it. It was the resolution wasn't great enough to read that one. I don't know whether you caught it or not.
I did not. I'm waiting for them to give us. There was some online chatter about the stellar cartography map that was there, and then also the fleet yard kind of shipyard area that they're going to be kind of displaying that in some clearer images, because obviously everyone who's a diehard Trekkie is like a huge. You're like into stellar cartography. Where's all the planets and where's all my ships? So they know we want it, so they're going to give it to us at some point. So yeah, I'm excited to see what those actually are and actually give us all the new class names and stuff like that. So I see some folks here. Chuck A is saying Kurtzman said that they are doing the Eisenberg class, which is, I think, very touching. I think it's a very simple nod. It doesn't overwhelm anything, and I think it's a great way to just immortalize his contribution to the Trek franchise. So I'm really glad that they did that. Even if we never see the USS Nog do anything, but yeah, it's pretty good. I like that. So, question for you.
Yes.
What do you think about the weird, I don't even know what to call it, the anomaly that Starfleet was inside of? What do you think about that?
The distortion field that, look, I guess, it's something we haven't ever seen before. I think we're all expecting, there was chatter going on, oh, the Federation headquarters are going to be on Vulcan, are they going to be on Bajor, are they going to be on wherever? But I don't think anybody kind of expected that it was just, a small gathering of ships all gathered around a starbase. Look, I think I haven't got a problem with it. I didn't love or hate it or anything like that. I think I'd be interested to know if there's a reason why the Federation has decided to put all of their chips around this one starbase that's surrounded by this big distortion field.
Right.
Is there a particular reason why they opted for that, as opposed to, well, let's make the Federation headquarters on such and such a planet, because obviously for years it's been on Earth in San Francisco, and now they didn't even actually kind of even mention what area of space they were headed to. There was no mention of, okay, we're now in the such and such sector, or we're I don't know, halfway between this planet and this planet.
I'm gonna say that they're doing that on purpose, because I'm just speculating here. Other than Earth, we don't really know the location of really anything else that we've seen so far, for the most part. And I think the intention behind that is to let the beta canon, stellar cartographers, and the lore experts kind of map that out more later on as they're unfolding the season and kind of understanding where everything is at. I think that they're doing that on purpose, because as soon as you say this is right here at this location, everyone's going to be like, okay, that's canon. The distortion field's right here, period. That's it. They can't ever move it ever again. Yes. That's where it was. So they're being very vague with it, because I think that they're making sure that they don't back themselves into any kind of corner where they have recreated now more canon, because everything that they're doing is they're literally laying down the tracks and the canon train's right behind them. So everything that they do and that they confirm is canon, like the seed ship, that's canon now. Like that's a canon thing, So
and as you say, they know how hard we just grab onto those.
We grip it. We grip it, and so I think they're doing that very deliberately. Like, we don't even know what that planet was that they landed on that was all blowed up. Like, we don't even understand where that even was. Like, where was that? Where was that space station and that guy who's, I assume, is still on there? They just left him there, which is a little rude.
They sent him off into the night or whatever, never to be frozen or something.
Yeah, right. I don't know what the hell. They just left his ass there. They're like, he's been there for 40 years, and they're like, yeah, why don't you probably should just keep manning it then, I guess. Probably just hang out. They just left his ass there. But I think they're being very deliberate with that. I don't think that's I don't think that they're doing anything crazy here with that. But yeah, so I don't hate the distortion field. I think that's playing into this idea that the Federation is still in hiding. They've been in there for over 100 years. I think that they're still concerned about what the burn was and who did it. and what that really means and how that kind of plays into what's happening in the universe. So I think that they're still in hiding. I think that they're still concerned that whoever caused the burn or whatever caused the burn may still be looking for them, because as far as I know, they're still utilizing dilithium, so their ships could still have accidents if somebody were to redo the burn again or whatever it was, if it was some kind of resonator weapon or whatever it is. So they're
and you can
obviously
tell
afraid.
that Admiral Vance is definitely playing everything on the side of caution. He's he's not taking any risks. It's like, we've put all of our chips in this basket, or all of our eggs in this basket. I'm mixing my metaphors. Putting all our eggs in this basket, in this distortion field, and he is just, he obviously has to second and third and fourth guess every decision he makes, because I guess if he makes the wrong decision, the Federation is sort of hanging on by a thread that everything's, if he just does the wrong thing, I guess it's all going to come falling apart. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you bring him up because, and I'm just speculating on his age. I don't know how long people are living at this point in time, but if he's living in the same way in terms of ages that people were living at, like in the TNG era, maybe plus a little bit, that means like when the burn occurred, he was maybe a junior officer in Starfleet at the time, and maybe a mid-level officer. So he's really known for his entire Starfleet career is the burn and that incident. So he's probably been, and I'm just speculating on his character, he's somebody that's probably been historically just stuck in that crisis emergency action mode for his entire career. And I wonder if we're going to play into that a little bit as we continue on with the season. Like maybe he has trouble like switching off of that idea of like everything is a crazy crisis and we have to be, so like you said, play everything super safe and second guess everything, because that's all he's ever known. And that's going to be something that maybe like Saru will help inspire within him to kind of re-engage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That, I think that'll be fun.
Yeah. I think whether we'll see him kind of, relax a little bit. What it's like, okay, we've got the Discovery now that can jump in the blink of an eye anywhere we need it to.
Yeah,
we can finally just kind of just relax a little bit, take a breath, not be so uptight, and
right.
But I guess I guess by the same token, you've got this this ship at your disposal. Whether he's going to be super protective of that ship and not, okay, well, you're obviously very special. We need to save you for, for only the most important missions, and we can't. We have to wrap you in bubble wrap and put you in, cotton wool, and you can't leave because if anything happens to you guys, then we're screwed.
Right. And that's another thing is I wonder if at some point throughout this season, they're going to attempt to utilize that programmable matter and Stamets's, knowledge of the spore drive and the spore drive network to put the spore drives on all of the ships so they can all kind of get around. Because I know that they leaned a lot of that heaviness. They leaned very heavily into episode 4 where Saru was like, I really need you to figure out an interface for this device, the spore drive, without you.
I would be surprised if they did that, because then if they do that, it doesn't make Discovery special. I think they need to keep Discovery as the only spore drive
ship. At least for a while.
At least for a while. Yeah, because then it may... I think it's what's probably more likely is they share their ginormous supply of dilithium, which we saw, Burnham giving to Book, I think it was episode, was it 2 or 3 or something, where they showed the whole dilithium thing. I think it's more of a case of, you have some dilithium and you have some dilithium.
Everybody gets some dilithium. Right, exactly. Yeah. I agree. I think that's probably likely. Somebody just asked in the chat here, Flurkin's Galaxy says, do we think that the Discovery will get a refit? I think that's something that's probably a given. How much they're going to refit is a question, because I doubt that they're going to redo the entire sets, because that costs a lot of money. So I'm wondering if it's going to be maybe an external refit, and like maybe they'll change the hull composition to something more, or they'll just be like, the shields are now upgraded to whatever percentage, but that doesn't affect the physical sets that they have to rebuild. Do you think they're going to do a refit?
Look, I think there's certain elements they will say have been refit. Like they'll say, okay, we've upgraded your shields. We've upgraded your supply of quantum torpedoes, and now you've got 32nd century shields. You've got souped up, extra powerful 32nd century quantum torpedoes. but I would be surprised if they kind of, did a major refit in the sense of, for example, how the Kirk's Enterprise looked at the end of the TV series as to how it looked in, say, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I don't think they're going to change anything too visual there. I think they're going to say there are enhancements like shields and weaponry and so forth, but I would be surprised if they change anything in terms of the features on the actual ship itself.
Yeah, me too. I think the most I think we would see is maybe some holographic interface replacements instead of like the glass panes, like the comms guy has to use the glass window to touch things. I think maybe they'll replace some of those with some holographic interfaces. Maybe.
I tell you what I would like to see though, and I've done a little illustration here on Photoshop. I'm not sure whether you guys can see this or not. I'll hold up my iPad. That's what I would like to see. What
is the deal? What is the deal?
I would like to see a change of uniforms. I think every Star Trek series that we've been through, around maybe season 3 or 4 or whatever, we've had a change of uniform, and I would like to see. I would like to see that. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually surprised because they.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Do you like to see that?
I would love to see that. What do you guys think in the channel? That's actually really great Photoshop. You should put those photos up online. People would eat that shit up, man.
Yeah, I think I might do that.
I think you should. But so my thing is like, they got the new badges, right?
Yes.
Which are really freaking cool, by the way. I love those. I like how they're like personal, like little screens or whatever they can do things on. But I was surprised by the fact that at the end of this episode, we didn't get the new uniforms. I'm thinking maybe then if they do a refit, they may then give them the new uniforms because they should have the new ones, right?
They've established that, in season 2, when Pike came aboard the Discovery, he switched from his, yellow and black uniform to the Discovery uniforms.
Right.
So if Discovery are now in 32nd century and they're representing Starfleet, surely they would update their uniforms to the current day style. Yeah, you would think so anyway.
I would think so. And obviously with all this programmable matter and stuff like that, they can clearly just make them, beyond the fact that replicators can do it. But yeah, I am wondering, I mean, obviously you have to put in consideration the physical costs of reuniforming everybody on the Discovery. So there may be a literal cost that maybe they're like kind of trying to avoid, or maybe they're kind of waiting for that big moment. Maybe there's going to be a larger moment later on in the season that really kind of drives home the connection between the Discovery and the Federation, and that's when they put the uniforms on. It could be a situation like that. We could also get like a Star Trek Generations situation where sometimes people are wearing the TNG uniforms and sometimes they're wearing the Deep Space Nine uniform, so they could do something that,
Well, that's right, because in Star Trek Generations, I think throughout the course of that film, we had characters wearing the original Next Generation uniforms, where the music wearing the Voyager style uniforms. It was constantly changing in that movie. So yeah, whether there's going to be like a transition period where they all switch over.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad also that they stuck with the Next Generation and Beyond color schemes for the departments too. That they stuck with Command for red and blue for medical and yellow for tactical and engineering or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. They're still leaning a bit into the white for medical, but there's still that blue. Yeah, I like the fact that they kind of kept that thread there, which makes sense. It makes sense, I think, in a lot of ways.
Because I think one of I don't hate the Discovery uniforms, but one criticism I've always had with them is the difference between the shade of gold and bronze and silver is so subtle that all the uniforms end up looking exactly the same. It's such a subtle difference, you can't immediately see, the variance between the departments. So I'd like to see them switch to the new 32nd century style ones. If that's just me.
I agree. So I'm going to do two things here real quick. So Tom Casey donates $2. Thank you again, Tom, for the donation. It says, I agree. I think you'll get different uniforms. I think you're right. I think we're going to get different uniforms. If not soon, maybe towards the end of the season. And Snoopy McQueen donates $5, which is a laughing emoji that says, ha 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 ha. I think you're just having fun, Snoopy. So thank you for the donation there.
Thanks, Snoop.
Yeah, appreciate it. So Two big other things that kind of occurred. We talked a lot about the Federation and kind of what's going on there. Two other things that occurred in this episode is we had the Seed Vault, and then we also had whatever the heck is going on with Georgiou and the blinking and Cronenberg.
Yes.
So let's talk about that first. We didn't really get a resolution to that sequence. They were having a very clearly good sparring match. I feel like he was actually outsmarting her more than she may have realized. That's the impression that I got, that he was up to something very nefarious.
Oh, look, he didn't want to. He was definitely trying to stir her up.
Yeah,
and she was doing her very best not to bite. But you could tell that whole spiel of him saying, "Oh, by the way, the Terran Empire, they blew themselves out of existence, hundreds of years ago, and there hasn't been a crossover from the
like
Prime
500 years or something.
500 years.
Yeah.
And hey, all your people, you're dead. You're the last of them. They're all blown out of existence now. You can tell she was doing her best to kind of keep calm and not reach over the table and punch his lights out.
Yeah, definitely. She was trying to play it cool, but we never saw, like, the next time we saw her was back on the Discovery, where she was just standing there, and not responding to Michael. And she was just kind of hanging tight, right? If I remember that correctly. And so we never saw the resolution of their conversation. I actually think that perhaps maybe in episode 6, that we'll get like some flashbacks to how that conversation continued to unfold and what it is that he did to her. Because he mentions talking about like a...
So you're thinking along the similar lines to, say, in Star Trek Picard, when we got those flashbacks of Jurati talking to the Romulan admiral.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yes, I think we're going to get some flashbacks like that. And I think something occurred. I actually thought for a second that maybe that was a holographic Georgiou, because the other holograms that were running around were kind of bizarre as well, and her behavior at the end was a bit bizarre. But then I was like, no, because how could he get that to display inside of the Discovery? That's weird. So I don't think that's the case. But I think that he did mention that there's like a special Terran Empire gene that they're able to detect. So I'm wondering if there was something going on there. And actually, non, hey, goodbye. Non, hey, goodbye. I just got that. Yeah, thank you. I just got that. Donate $2. Thank you so much. Says, I think Cronenberg modified Georgiou genetically. And I agree. I think there's something going on there. What do you think?
I think Cronenberg has definitely done something wacky to Georgiou. The question is, they didn't ever say that he was from Section 31, but he did have the little black Section 31 style comm badge, I think, didn't he? I think whether he's programmed Georgiou as some kind of sleeper agent, perhaps. It's like, okay, I'm going to, implant something into your mind or whatever and send you back to the ship as my personal, spy or whatever the case may be. I think it's maybe something along those lines, some sort of turning Georgiou into some sort of sleeper agent, perhaps.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I think that bottom line is, we'll get to know the answers to what happened to her at the end of the season, hopefully, maybe before then. But I do appreciate the fact that they're giving Michelle Yeoh more things to do other than just snide remarks and punching people in the face. Clearly, they're about to do something. Like her sequence there.
Even though the snide remarks are very good.
I know, and yes. I love them. But they're like, we should do something a bit more with this character. So they're like, something's going on, and she's obviously going to have some kind of arc through this. I mean, for all we know, maybe he didn't do anything to her genetically. Maybe just the fact that he was like, all the Terrans are dead and your universe probably just blew itself out of existence. Maybe that was enough to rattle her in some regards, because that is where she's from. That is where she's from.
True, although she was in that catatonic state for quite some time before Burnham shook her out of it. At the end of the
like
episode.
A robot almost. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it was just her being a bit messed up psychologically, I can see how she could have, zoned out and taken a moment for her to kind of, get back to Burnham. But Burnham was like, Georgiou, hello, Philippa, hello,
right.
Are you there?
She was like shaking her, Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I know.
It went on for quite some time. So, yeah, I mean, there's something Section 31 dodgy going on there with her, I think.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens there. So the next thing I want to talk about then is the seed vault sequence, which I thought was done very well. But what do you think about this? Just the seed vault construct. What do you think about that?
There was sort of mixed messages, because I think there was a bit of dialogue that firstly said the Discovery said, "Oh, by the way, there's this ship with all these seeds on it."
Right.
And it's like, hang on. This was the ship meant to be as old as the Discovery? But then they said it had been out there for 500 years, which implied that, the ship was only 500 years old and not 1,000 years old. So there's I thought there was a couple of little mixed messages going on there with the history of that ship. And the fact that, Burnham and Saru just kind of go, "Oh, hey, we just happen to know about this ship called the Tikov that was, around in our day, which had all these seeds on it or whatever." It's like,
right.
What? Like, this is, it's like you didn't even have to look up. You didn't even have to look up or research this information. It kind of felt a little bit like it came to them a bit too quickly. There was
It did.
How are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to this race that's infected with this virus or whatever it is? They didn't even have to go to the computer and research. It's like oh, we just happen to know this information, And then luckily enough, Admiral Vance says, "Oh yes, well, coincidentally, this ship still happens to be around, even though it's 1,000 years old." It's
right.
There was a few convenient little conveniences going on there, just I suppose to maybe just advance the storytelling process through a bit quicker than it perhaps more logically should have progressed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say out of this episode, it being as dense as it is, and it is very dense with a lot of information in a good way. Like, it doesn't feel weighed down. We got a lot of great answers and a lot of more great questions. That was like the very small blip of like, okay, it's not like it goes against the Star Trek standard of just the USS Magic Wand or the Techno Bow or whatever,
Yes.
That is a Star Trek standard. It is a double-sided sword, though, the double-edged sword here with these more realistic Star Trek shows where they're trying to really push a lot of realism in them. So it's like, I feel like they're definitely adding a lot more of those elements to this season. Like, there's a lot of talk about dark matter and these mycelium quantum whatevers and all this stuff. Like, they're trying to expand the sci-fi portion of it all. And that was
I do definitely think the episode with that whole, let's send an away team over to this mystery ship and work out what this mystery is. And there's this, shape, this mysterious sort of invisible shape moving around the ship, which, turned out to be the far. I thought that aspect of the episode.
Right, that was great.
That was great. And that felt very Star Trek to me. I think that was kind of like the, almost like the classic style of Star Trek storytelling, which I think was really good.
It was, and again, it had a fantastic ending there with Non choosing to kind of take up the mantle and do the right thing there for what was going on there and be with that guy. And it was very like a very real situation. I mean, like, it was a really great way to just, and that's what I mean, like, this episode is so dense because we had all this front load stuff of interacting with Starfleet and the Federation, and then they still added like a whole mission attached to that to prove themselves, and they also still layered in a lot of character development and all this great stuff. And I thought the Sea Chip overall was fine. Like, I didn't think like it makes sense that they would have like this seed arc or whatever. I mean, that's a very big thing in sci-fi tropes. Like, a lot of franchises are doing that, so it makes sense that Star Trek would have had one. We just maybe never talked about it. Not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. It was fine. Like, I know I've heard some chatter online of people being like, "This is ridiculous. I could think of 1,000 different scenarios in other Star Trek episodes that they could have used this ship." And it's like, yeah, but it is what it is, in my opinion.
It is.
We're moving on.
I am surprised that Security Chief Nan or whatever is leaving us so soon, because I was sort of watching this episode and going, "Oh, okay, they're giving this character a bit more screen time and we're developing her character and we're learning a bit more about her. Like, oh, that's great." And then at the end, and she's leaving it. Oh, okay. I was just getting into learning more about her and getting to know the character in a little bit more detail, and then And then as soon as they've done that, it's like, bye-bye, see you later. It's like, oh, okay, that's a little bit disappointing. But anyway.
The only part with that is when Burnham was like, you're going to give up your career for this. And I was like, is she though? Because if she's just going to bring the ship back to her home planet, like, is she going to stay on there forever? Or like after the tour is done for that particular family or that, you know, that they were supposed to be there, because they weren't going to be there for forever. It was just a tour. And then someone else would take it over. Then she would probably be able to come back to Starfleet. I don't think she's done. I think we're going to see more Non later. But you're right to say that they pulled another kind of like, not as bad, but it felt a little Arium-esque, where they were like, I'm going to give you all this great information about this character, and then we're going to get rid of her. And it's like, God dang it. You know? So it felt a little Arium-esque, but not as bad, because she's not dead. And we have I think we're going to see her again. I do. I don't think she's dead.
I guess it depends on how far away Barzan is from where they were. Like, and if they're traveling at, you know, only warp 1 with their amount of dilithium or whatever, it's going to take her, you know, 3 years to get back to Barzan or whatever, you know.
Yeah. It'll be a while.
So,
I don't think, I think that I think it's safe to say that she'll be back. I think it's safe to say that. So,
although I wonder whether the reason behind that was, because wasn't the chick with the black hair that Vance put on board the Discovery, wasn't she a security officer? Lieutenant Willer, I think her name was.
She was, and I know actually somebody in the chat just theorized that as well a bit ago, that said that she might be coming on board to be the new security officer, and we may see that in the next episode. That would be fun. I know at the end they were like, okay, we'll keep the Discovery crew intact, but I'm wondering if in the next episode the Admiral doesn't be like, I'm going to put a couple of crew members on there to kind of help facilitate your introduction to the future, and maybe she'll be one of those. That'd be fun. I'd like that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I mean, I think it makes sense for Vance to put somebody on board the Discovery from the 32nd century as their kind of liaison, I think. And whether or not there was so many other characters, it's like, okay, we got to lose somebody to get a new character on here. Let's lose Nan, you know?
Yeah. I agree there. So let's slide into, so we talked a lot about episode 5. We're going to get to the music, the cello music in a bit. We haven't forgotten about the music. So just everybody in the chat, don't worry. We know about the music. We're going to get to it. So I want to ask you, from your perspective, so far, we're gearing up to be about midway through the 3rd season.
Yep.
Obviously, one of the big tropes in Star Trek is, you know, growing the beard. You know, in TNG, when Riker grew the beard, they say that's when the show got good. I think that when Sisko shaved his head, Deep Space Nine got good, and when Janeway let her hair down, that's when Voyager got good. It's a hair-related situation. Do you think, and in this case, Michael Burnham has grown her hair.
This is true.
Do you think that they have grown their beard so far, based off of what we've seen so far? Do you think the show is actually living up and exceeding expectations, or is it the same or
I
worse?
I think we're definitely well on the way to growing the beard. I think we can see the stubble coming through. We can see the potential of the
5 o'clock shadow. Yeah.
Yes, we're seeing definite follicle activity.
Follicle activity. I don't like that. I don't like the way you just described that. Yeah.
I think. Ask me that question again on our next live stream in 5 episodes time or whatever. But I think I think there's definitely a good sign of a growth happening. I am buoyed with confidence that it is definitely heading in that direction. And I think there's a lot of the issues that I had about Discovery in the past. Are well and truly being swept aside now. I think this show is proving that it can stand on its own 2 feet without Pike to prop it up. So I think all of those things are definitely pointing in the right direction. Obviously, I think because we've got so many questions going on, we've got the question of the burn, we've got the question of the musical thing with the cello and Nadira, we've got the question of what's going on with
the burn and all that,
with Georgiou and all that.
Yeah,
I think we've got so many questions going on but we don't know how they're all going to play out. And if they play out in a way that just blows our mind and goes, oh my God, like I never guessed it was this is amazing.
Right.
I think at that point we'll see the full beard growth and we can definitely check that box. But I think if it's one of those situations, maybe a little bit like the end of Star Trek Picard, where they sort of almost rushed the ending and they didn't kind of have a chance to wrap up all of those loose threads.
Yeah.
And we kind of end up going, hey, but what about this and what about that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is my fear, is that we're seeing a lot of potential with the show, and it's definitely seeming like it's heading in the right direction in terms of its beard growth. But I think how it plays out towards the end of the season, and whether all of these little hooks that they're giving us, whether they pay off in a satisfactory way, I think that's going to definitely determine whether we have beard or not.
The follicle, what did you call it earlier? The follicle activity?
Follicle activity. Yes.
I would say that it's definitely well on its way. A show like this that is designed to be watched as a 13-hour movie, which Discovery is, and that's okay. That's, if you're not aware of that already, I don't know where you've been. That's the way they're designing these shows. We don't know yet if it's full beard growth, because they're all super connected and there's these overarching plots. Whereas like other shows, like previous shows, like a couple of episodes in, you can be like, yeah, this is pretty good beard growth. I think we've got it. But I think you're right to say, like, at the end, if it all pays off and it all makes a lot of sense and it's worth it, all of this stuff is worth it, then I think that they're well on their way to that full beard growth. And I think that this may actually live up to the growth expectation that I think they've had the opportunity. Like, I've said it a lot of times. I know you've said it before too. Like, this was their time to prove it. Like, they got rid of all of the canon problems. They got away from the past. They're in the super far in the future. This is their opportunity to prove it. Nothing can possibly hold them back except for themselves. And I think that they're well on their way. I think that these episodes have been great. And like I said earlier, whatever we're at right now, they're being very deliberate. We're having a lot of character-focused episodes, which again is a response to the feedback that a lot of people said, which is we want to slow down enough with the constant running around. Give us a time to grow with these characters. Give us a time to breathe with these characters. They're being very, very deliberate. They're being very careful with how they're putting every single piece together. And I feel like we're slowly building up to that eventual revelation of whatever that is. And I actually think we're going to get a really fantastic cliffhanger, because they're already in production for the fourth season. So they already knew that that's how they were able to write it. They were going to have that fourth season. So it's possible we may not get a full resolution at the end, and we may get a really fantastic two-parter season finale, season premiere, and I think that they're on their way to really deserving it. Now they just have to be careful, because Alex Kurtzman in the past and their writing group has a problem where they like to overcomplicate things for zero reason whatsoever. They did this with the Red Angel, they did this in Picard, and they need to be very careful here not to overcomplicate it for no reason and just allow the story to just unfold, And I think that
absolutely.
I think if they continue on with the way that they're doing right now, whether, not necessarily going up or down, I think that we'll say that they've grown a fairly decent beard, but I'm hoping that they have just a knockout episode that really just blows everybody away. And I feel like we're going to get that, because at some point we're going to have to reveal the burn. We're going to have to reveal the cello music. We're going to have to reveal these things. And I think that's when things are going to start to blow up. And these are just fun mysteries to uncover. It's not about them being superheroes to save the entire galaxy or whatever it is. It's just going to be a fun mystery. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. And I think provided there's always that kind of fear that obviously us as fans have a tendency to speculate as to what the answers are.
Right.
And there's always that risk, I guess, that the stuff we're imagining and the stuff we're thinking, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, are potentially, and then by the time it actually does pay off, that it's like, oh, okay. Well, the thing I thought of, maybe I thought would have been more interesting, but okay, because obviously I think I remember the very first episode of Star Trek Picard where we saw that dream sequence with Picard and Data playing cards in 10 forward or whatever, and then Data had the 5 Qs and the cards and everything,
And we were, I know.
Oh, and people going Borg Queen, people are going, oh, is it Q? Q for, and all this stuff we're speculating, and then that it ended up being absolutely nothing. There was no significance, nothing. So there's always that kind of thing where our imaginations are running wild with all these things we see.
Yeah.
And then in the end, if it just goes, oh, that actually meant nothing, all right, I hope that's not the case. I hope that, we get a satisfactory resolution to all these mysteries and little, breadcrumb trails that they're laying.
So with that, let's kind of transition our conversation then into kind of some theory crafting as we wrap up the live stream here. So a couple of big things that are on my radar that I'm thinking of. The burn, and obviously understanding that. This cello music and why people are hearing it all across the galaxy and why people are hearing this music. Their arrival in the future not being at Terralisium, which is where it should have been. And the fact that nobody's heard of Gabriel Burnham, Dr. Burnham, Michael's mom. Gabrielle Burnham, excuse me. And those are like the big things that I'm tracking on in my mind. And we don't have answers really to any of those things yet. We have, I think that those things are going to be related. Now, I made a theory video earlier this week talking about how I think that they've landed in the Kelvin universe. I have some crazy theories as to why that is. I don't think that necessarily is the case, but I think that there's something going to be going on with the shifts of the universe, and maybe they're not necessarily in the place that they thought. I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with it. Oh, yeah, and the other thing too which is the Calypso short trek. That's a whole nother questionable situation. So that's what I'm tracking on.
Something that plays into that theory of yours is something that David Cronenberg said to Georgiou in that meeting. And I've been trying to rack my brains as to what the meaning of that could be.
You're talking about the adjacent universe thing that he talked about? Like there's a bunch of adjacent universes?
Yeah, I mean, he said to... Cronenberg said to... I mean, we never got the name of the character, did we? He never introduced himself or anything. So I'm just going to call him Cronenberg.
He's Cronenberg. We know who the Cronenberg guy is. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. That he said to Georgiou, this is your second universe and your third timeline.
Right.
So, okay, I get the whole second universe thing. But where's the three timelines?
I'm thinking what that meant was that she was in her main universe with her timeline, and then she jumped over to the Prime universe with the Prime universe timeline at that moment, and then she jumped ahead into the future, and that's kind of her third timeline. Okay. I'm assuming that's the case, but he did talk a lot about this construct about like being super aware of the Terran universe and stuff like that, and if what we understand is to be believed as correct that they're setting up within Star Trek is the Kelvin films, the Kelvin trilogy is a universe, like it's another parallel universe to the Prime timeline that we're in. So it's possible that they maybe be in somewhere in between those things. I don't know, because they wouldn't know. Why would they know that answer? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things that happened in the last 1,000 years and everything that's been kind of destroyed over the last 120 years. Would they even recognize the fact that they're in a slightly different universe? Maybe it's not Kelvin, maybe it's something else. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. But that's a bold move. That's a super bold move. I don't think they're going to go down that route just because of all the backlash about timelines and all that stuff that Discovery's been plagued with. I think they're going to avoid that, but it is an interesting thought. But it does leave us with a lot of really good questions, which is what's going on with the Calypso and also all the other things that I listed, the music, the mom, Terralisium, and the burn. Like, what the heck? What is with... Obviously, the music is going to have something to do with the burn. But what? I have I have zero theories. Zero.
I mean, yeah, so we've had... Obviously, we had Adira playing it on the cello, which was a piece of music that Admiral Senator learnt as a child. Yeah. So it's been around for at least 100+ years.
Right.
We've got the Barzan family that have been on board the seed ship for God knows how long.
Time period.
To each other.
Yeah. Time period. Yep. Yeah.
I think Lieutenant Willer, I think, made some comment to it about it in the med bay or whatever it was while they were healing all of the silly about, oh, well, what, have you heard this piece of music before? And I think she said, I don't know, everybody kind of knows it. It's just one of those things that's kind of, out there in the, I don't know.
People just know it. People just
People
know
just
it.
know it.
Right.
So there's obviously, yes, it's sort of, your guess is as good as mine. I don't think we haven't really received enough information because we've only had one episode of exposition talking about this musical theme, really. So
right, and it was very brief.
Very brief. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that it's playing out as a musical.
So what I'm thinking is maybe potentially that the music itself was like a tone that was sent by a species for first contact, and it accidentally caused the burn and caused all the dilithium to shatter, but it also got into people's minds, and that's why it's stuck in there. Because it was like a musical, like you remember, like the giant cigar that attacked everybody at the voyage home on the, and it was screeching whale sounds, and they're like, well, we got
that's right.
They were like, well, we could just bring up space YouTube and play a sound of whales, but they were like, no, what if we went back in time and got 2 friggin' whales? Whatever, but that was like a thing that only responded through whale songs, and because it was talking, it was causing all of these disturbances on the planet, and it was just not really, I don't think it wasn't intentional. It was just what it was doing. So I'm wondering if we're going to be in a situation where that music is just how human or how sentient beings interpreted the sound of some alien species, maybe from the future or the past, or just like maybe non-corporeal being kind of talking to it, and that's how they've interpreted it as the song, and that's why everybody knows it, because it went out everywhere, and that's just what happened. It's possible. I mean, you look at like the crystalline entity, and they had to talk to it through like a wave sense thing, right? And then obviously that lady blew it up, but that could be a situation as well. That maybe that's how it's something.
It's as good as any theory at the moment. With I think until we get a few more clues, I think it's
This guy just says like the tones in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where it was music. Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice analogy, Norman M.
Yes. Good job there, Norman M. Yes. Very good. And see, we're theory crafting here, folks. We're smart. Okay, we're wicked smart. Okay.
One thing I am liking about the show is that I think it's quite refreshing that they've introduced this new Andorian Orion syndicate, the Emerald Chain, as kind of like the main antagonist for this show. I think that they've kind of almost seems like they've gone to a concerted effort to say, right, we're not going to show Romulans, we're not going to show Borg, we're not going to show Klingons. Who is a known sort of Star Trek baddie that kind of everybody's aware of but hasn't really had that much screen time? Okay, let's pair up the Andorians and the Orions, and they can be the new big bad for this season or something. I think that's a bit of a breath of fresh air, as opposed to seeing somebody we've already covered a lot of ground on before.
Right. I mean, and it makes sense in universe when you think about it. Like, what groups of people would thrive in a post-Federation, post-warp travel kind of construct? And in my mind's like the Andorians, have always been a little, intense. And then the Orions, of course, would definitely thrive in a lawless environment without the Federation being around. And right, like the Romulans were already totally screwed from the supernova incident that we covered in Picard. And the Klingons, I mean, they're already screwed with what they had. So the loss of dilithium and everything else that they probably lost, they're probably in complete disarray. I assume we'll probably get to that at some point, but whatever. But right, like what organizations would actually thrive? And I actually think we're going to get to see some Ferengi as well. I really do think we're going to see
that
would
be
Ferengi.
good.
Yeah, because they would also, thrive in this kind of environment. And it makes sense in universe. And you're right. I like the fact that it's like, and it's funny too, because it's not even like this big bad. It's like just this simple crime syndicate that if the Federation was at the height of its power would be gone in an instant.
In a second.
Right. They crush it in a second, but because they can't, they're like this big bad threat, because they have a couple of ships, and it's I mean, and I think that I think that part of the rallying of the Discovery is going to do with the Federation is to bring people back together. I think that may have to do with the construct of unification. I think the unification thing may not necessarily have to do with Tom Casey, just $2 donation. Very good chat. Gotta leave. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate all your donations and
Thanks,
for hanging
Tom.
out for so long. I appreciate it. I think that unification 3 may not necessarily have to do with the Romulan Vulcan construct, which it had to do with back in the TNG area. I think it may kind of build upon that and maybe be unification of the Federation back with Earth, back maybe with Vulcan, because we don't know what's going on at Vulcan, maybe back with the Andorians, and really that unification of the Federation member worlds and kind of getting the core member worlds back together to really get the fight back out there. That would be freaking awesome, and I would love to see that. I would just love to see it. I want to see it. You know, I want to see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we have seen some other Star Trek races as kind of background extras. I think we've seen in that that starport thing from the first episode. I think we saw when Burnham was doing her kind of personal log business. We saw some. We saw a few Cardassians in the background. We saw Morn. I forget what Morn's race is from DS9.
The Morns. The Morns.
Yeah,
Somebody will tell us. Somebody's going to correct
Yeah.
us in the chat here in 20 seconds. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's been good that we've seen that that kind of continuity. I think because when we've jumped so far into the future and everything seems unfamiliar, I think they've at least done the thing where okay, if we're jumping this far forward, we don't want the show to seem like a completely a completely new sci-fi series, because obviously that was a big risk that it was going to, like, this doesn't feel like Star Trek anymore. So at least they had the mindfulness to, scatter some known Star Trek races in the background and so forth, just to ground the show. Lurian, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, there we go. See, I told you they were going to be coming in any minute. Yeah, I told you.
Yeah. So yeah, it would obviously be good to see. I have a feeling whether we might see some Cardassians in obviously this Scavengers episode that's coming up next week. I think in the trailer maybe we saw a couple of Cardassians in the background of that. Perhaps.
Could be something.
Sure.
Yeah, it could be something. Yeah, definitely. I think I want to say that you're 100% right, because what's fun about this season, and I don't think people are giving it enough attention and enough focus. What's super fun about this season is this. So I feel like before, with Star Trek Discovery in the first and second season, it was always like us like holding our Star Trek universe and being like, okay, this show is over here and I don't really know what's going on with it, and I'm trying to figure out how to fit it into here, and it seems like I know everything that's going on in the Star Trek universe and you're trying to butt in and I don't like it. Whereas now, us all being in the future, the characters and the audience being in the future, it's like we're holding on to the Discovery, and the universe is what we're trying to fit ourselves into, and we don't really understand it, So we're on this adventure together with them, uncovering this literal strange new worlds, even worlds that we've known for so long. Earth, we're discovering these strange new worlds. Like when they went to Trill, they were like, I don't know if they're going to be helpful or not. And they kind of weren't, They kind of weren't,
Because obviously they had to look at the sphere data to learn about Trill, because obviously
they didn't know about Trill back then.
They didn't know about Trill.
They didn't know about Trill, which was a great detail. So I think you're right to say that it was smart of them to include a lot of those traditional Star Trek races kind of scattered about. People may say like, this is a lot of Orions and Andorians, and it's like, yeah, maybe, but they have to ground it, like you said, they have to ground it in something, so that as we're traveling into this unknown with our holding on to our Discovery, we understand some of the things, and it's like, okay, I know where I'm stepping, I know where this is, I know where that is, and
exactly.
And it gives us a little bit of comfort, even though it's still very, very foreign to us as the audience and as Trekkies, and also for the crew. And I think it's great. I think it's a masterfully done script in that regard. Not everything is masterfully done, but just a masterfully done way of creating it so that normally in sci-fi you have a fish out of water character, but they've changed it so that all of the characters and us as the audience, we're all the fish out of the water. And so we're
taking that
jumping in.
journey with the crew. It makes us feel like part of the team, that we're learning things about the new.
We're the Discovery crew,
century.
right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's impressive. Again, like there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of continue to nitpick and kind of pull apart or whatever. But that idea that they've kind of rolled with at this point is impressive, and I don't think people are really paying enough attention to that. That they're really flexing that construct quite a bit. Like the idea of like going to Earth and immediately getting hostile, intentions, and then going to Trill and it immediately being this big friggin' problem, and then going to the Federation. Guess what? Surprise! It's another big friggin' problem because this universe is a bit foreign to us. So I think so. So Jemison's $5 donation. Thank you so much for that. Says, Captain, we've got whales here. Love you guys, are great. Look forward weekly to your shared perspectives and thoughts about Discovery. Thank you, Jem. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jem.
Yeah, very nice. All right, Nick. So I'm going to hit you up here. What are some of your final thoughts, closing thoughts about episode 5 and beyond? What are you excited for? What are you thinking?
Oh, look, I mean, I think learning obviously a bit more, getting a few more clues about these mysteries that we've been presented with, I think is I think we're just kind of, they've got us as an audience with all these new mysteries that they're presenting to us. They've definitely got us leaning in, and we're interested to know more. So I think finding out any clues that we can about the burn and about Georgiou's predicament and about the musical number, I think that's going to play a pretty big part in forthcoming episodes. Obviously, also knowing a bit more about Adira as well. I think because obviously the last episode they made the request to say, okay, we want Burnham and Saru to come down. Oh, and also Adira to come down as well.
Yes.
And they said, okay, Adira, you go off to medical,
right?
To get a full diagnostic, and that was the last we saw of her. So what's gone on there? Like, is the whole situation with her? How's that going to play out? And are we going to? I don't know. Is she going to reawaken some new memories that Admiral Senatal had, or that's going to give us a bit more insight into the burn or whatever? I'm not sure, but it seems like there was a definite omission in terms of what that character is going through, and it's okay. Well, okay, we've seen her go off, but we never saw her again after that. So what's going on there?
Yep, something. Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, I think, look, as I said, I think it's definitely cracking on this season. It'll be we're almost halfway through, and just seeing how all these mysteries play out, I think is kind of the thing I'm sort of most looking forward to. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The mysteries is definitely the big thing. I would say, just from a personal perspective, I would really like it if we got a brand new bad guy race. I've been saying that in my last couple of reviews and last couple of live streams is I think we've had enough of Klingons, Romulans, Borg, Dominion. I think it's time for a new bad guy. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think this Admiral Chain thing, I don't think is necessarily potentially that big of a bad guy like we talked about earlier. It may not necessarily be that big of a deal, but I would like another like alien race to kind of be the big bad, and for that not to necessarily be a big deal maybe this season, that maybe we uncover some of that stuff later.
Well, they mentioned something else in the first episode that we haven't readdressed since, which was that Book made that comment to Burnham about the Gorn having destroyed whatever is light years of subspace. I'm cool with, like, if the Gorn are the bad guys, like that's giving them some respect beyond just giving them some more respect beyond that, Yes.
They deserve some respect, I think that would be fun. That would make the new bad guy, and that's also still familiar. That would be kind of fun. But so that is something I'd like to see. And and this is just a personal feeling, like I really want to see the beginnings and the hard work pay off of really unifying and getting that Federation mission restarted. I don't want a situation where that fails. I would hate that. I would hate that big time if after all this, they get there and they just aren't able to get the Federation to rally back to their original tenets. I want to see that play out.
That's what everybody wants to play out, I think. And if they didn't do that, I think everybody would cry foul.
You're right. I'm flipping the table. Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm very excited for it. I don't really have too many other expectations. I think at this point we've seen almost everything that we've seen in the promotion trailers leading up to season 3. We've seen the majority of the footage. I think maybe there's a couple of frames here and there, but the majority of the footage has been already seen. So I think we're in a situation again, kind of like what happened with Lower Decks, where all of that second half of the season footage was a totally separate thing, and we didn't get to see any
fresh
of that.
Eye candy,
Right, it was all fresh eye candy. So they may do something like that, where they'll do us a mid-season trailer for the second half. It's very possible. I think it paid off very well for Lower Decks, so they probably will replicate that. But yeah, at this point, we haven't seen really anything beyond kind of what we've seen so far. You know, obviously not including the teasers for the next episode of whatever, but it's
I think the other big thing that's probably going to play into the second half of the season, which we've learned a little bit about, but haven't really seen what the meaning behind it is this whole, let's call it the Force, the thing that the book was using to his forehead was glowing, and he's like,
his abilities, right, his abilities,
like learning more about what his abilities are and why he has these abilities. That seems like a definite breadcrumb that they've dropped, but haven't sort of we haven't really got into that in any great extent yet. And seeing how these abilities to commune with nature and plant life and animals and whatever, whether he's sort of like an Aquaman or something, he can talk to the animals or whatever he does,
well, I mean, they could tie his ability to be extraterrestrial, I'll say, to that whole theory that we were talking about earlier, which is like, if the music is like this sound that has resonated with people, maybe he's going to use his abilities to talk back to whomever or whatever it was that sent that message. Maybe they'll need some of that. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if he's got, maybe, I don't know. I mean, the thing is I think it's safe to say that, right now we've got like 200 people viewing this live stream. You and I are talking here. I think it's safe to say they've got us hooked. They have us hooked.
Absolutely.
And we want to know what the heck the answers are. We're along for this ride, and I just, fingers are crossed, I'm hoping that it pays off in a meaningful way, and that we'll just write season 1 of Discovery off as that really kind of crazy one, and then we'll just all be able to move on with our lives. That would be nice. I think that would be nice.
That goes without saying. I think season 1 is just something everybody's just trying to forget. I think.
Yes, it's okay. Just season 1. Listen, if you love season 1, all the power to you. I'm not taking it away from you. It had a lot of struggles there, both in front of the camera and behind. Season 2 is obviously markedly better. Season 3 is, I think, hopefully going to finish out super strong and just be that lightning rod for the rest of the show for maybe 5, 6, or even 7. Can you imagine if they had 7 seasons of Discovery? Some people out there's heads would literally explode.
Yeah, explode.
Literally explode, man. So,
because
all right.
Every waking breath is them trying to influence the cancellation of the show.
They're waiting with bated breath so that they can finally be right at some point in the future. I told you this time, But all right,
we know it's going to at least get as many seasons as Enterprise. Enterprise got 4 seasons. We know there's a 4th season confirmed for Discovery, so we know that it's going to at least equal Enterprise's efforts. Yes,
I would be surprised if they don't get a 5th season. That's just my personal speculation, especially if this one finishes out strong. And it's been very popular, very, very popular. Like, I was tweeting about it earlier today on Twitter. And you know how like it tells you like, oh, how many tweets there have been about a specific topic in the last hour? And it was like 9 a.m., here in Central Time. And it listed like 1,500 tweets about Star Trek Discovery in the last hour. So, and it hasn't really done that in the past. Like, it's definitely being more impactful, I think, just in general. But yeah, I'm very excited for it. I hopefully we get more.
Me too.
Yeah, especially if it's good. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. Nick, where can people find you online if they want to come check you out?
People can find me at Sci-Finatics. So if you go to as it's spelt on my T-shirt here. Sci-Finatics is my YouTube channel where I talk everything Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, much in a similar fashion to Ketwalski. So yeah, if you want to come over to my channel and check out some of my reviews and breakdowns and so forth, I will see you there.
Yeah, great. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. My
pleasure.
Yeah, I don't do too many live streams. I know I've just done one recently over on your channel a couple weeks back, and I don't do too many live streams over on my channel, but when I like to have somebody with me because I find it kind of lonely talking to myself and the chat.
Yes.
Even though I appreciate all of the chat members here, I can't hear any of you. Maybe we'll have to get some kind of Periscope group going here or something like that. But I appreciate you being here to bounce ideas off and having a really fantastic conversation.
It's always better talking to somebody else. Also, somebody I think who is a like-minded Star Trek fan where yes, you can share similar sentiments. I think always helps.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And with that, I want to go ahead and say thank you so much to every single one of you. I'm turning away from the camera because I'm looking at the live chat, so you guys know that I'm looking at you. Thank you so much to all of you guys and gals and pals that were here and we're participating, and thank you for keeping the chat lively and exciting and coming through with all these different great ideas. I think people that are going to go back and watch this video later, hopefully they'll be able to see this live chat up, and they'll get to see a lot of the great conversation that all of y'all had, which was really fantastic. Thank you all so much for the donations.
Thanks, everyone.
And for hanging out. Yeah, totally. Thank you all so much. So, all right, that's going to wrap us up for today. Again, thanks everyone for being here, and if you have not already, go and check out the Sci-Finatics channel. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. If you're not subscribed to my channel, I don't know what you're doing here, but you should be subscribed already. But thank you again. I really super duper appreciate everybody being here tonight. That includes you, Nick, and everybody other guests. So, all right, I will catch all of you guys and gals next time. Live long and prosper, my Trekkies.